Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive, and today we're partnering with Portal Mi Empresa. They're doing some really cool stuff, giving investors the info they need at the country level.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource.
So today, we're going to be diving into remittances to Latin America and the Caribbean,
Right.
especially Central America. We're going to be talking about Honduras.
A lot going on there.
So you're going to want to stick around for this one. All right. So to kick things off, I just want to get a sense of the big picture here.
Yeah.
When we talk about remittances to the region, what's the headline news?
Well, the big news is that they're booming.
Okay.
Surpassing pre-pandemic levels, which is really significant.
That's really good news, right, for the economies.
Yeah, really positive.
But booming can mean a lot of different things.
Right.
So do we have any specific numbers to put to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the report estimates that remittances to the region will reach about $156 billion in 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, and that marks 15 consecutive years of growth.
15 years straight.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Even through, global uncertainty
Yeah.
and economic ups and downs.
Yeah, through thick and thin.
These remittances have just kept coming in.
Yeah.
It seems like a very reliable source of income.
Yeah, very resilient. That's a good way to put it.
What does that tell you if you're, looking to invest in the region?
Well, I mean, that's exactly why Portal Mi Empresa is trying to do this, right?
Right.
They want to get this information out there because it is a sign of a very strong and resilient flow of capital to these countries.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the report talks about 4 key subregions: Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America.
Right.
Why break it down like that?
Well, because if you just look at the overall numbers, you kind of miss the nuance of what's happening in each region
Okay.
and what's driving those changes.
Got it. So can you give us an example of maybe one of those unexpected differences?
Sure. So if you look at the first half of 2023, overall remittances surged by 9.5%, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But if you compare that to 2022, it actually exceeds the growth rate for the entire year.
So it's accelerating.
Exactly. So even though 2022 was already a bounce back year from the pandemic, this year it's actually picking up speed even more.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it seems like we're finally moving past those pandemic aftershocks and kind of returning to the pre-pandemic growth trends. So if you remember, during the initial outbreak, there was that kind of unusual spike in remittances where families were really relying on that money.
Yeah.
So now it seems we're kind of back to a more, predictable, but still very strong pattern.
More sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where those sub-regional differences really come into play.
Okay.
So, for example, Central America, which is a region you're particularly interested in,
Well.
saw the highest growth rate of any sub-region,
Okay.
a whopping 13.2%.
Now that's interesting. And for me personally, this is where it gets interesting, I'm sure for you as well.
Right.
Because every single country in Central America saw an increase in remittances.
Yeah, across the board.
But one country stands out: Nicaragua.
Yeah.
Their growth was massive, 59%.
That's huge. And, that's probably reflecting the significant immigration from Nicaragua in recent years.
Oh, right.
So as more people move abroad, they need to support their families back home, which drives up those remittance figures.
It's amazing how connected these economies are, even across, these huge distances.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
And now to zoom in on Honduras, which I know is a key area for Portal Mi Empresa.
Absolutely.
Honduras saw a growth of 7.9%, which is good.
It's solid.
It's solid, but considerably lower than that 13.2% average for Central America.
Yeah, that's right.
So what could explain that?
That's the million-dollar question,
Right.
So it suggests that there are some unique factors at play in Honduras compared to its neighbors.
Interesting. So to answer that question,
Yeah.
we need to understand what's fueling remittance growth in general.
All right.
And are those drivers playing out differently in Honduras?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's follow the money trail. Where are these remittances coming from?
Yeah.
And what's happening in those sending countries that's impacting the flow of money?
So the report points to a few key factors,
Yeah.
mainly the interplay of migration, employment, and wages in those key remittance sending countries,
Okay.
particularly the United States and Spain.
Right.
So essentially, those three things are shaping how much money is flowing back to Latin America and the Caribbean.
Got it. So it makes sense that if more people from the region are working and earning more money in the U.S.,
Right.
that would translate to higher remittances, right?
Absolutely. And the data kind of backs that up.
Okay.
So the report shows that the number of immigrants from Latin America and the Caribbean living in the U.S. has actually increased.
Okay.
And that's particularly true for immigrants from the Caribbean, we see a rise of 8.6%.
8.6%. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a noticeable increase. And within those numbers, the Guatemalan and Belizean diasporas in the U.S. are growing really quickly.
Okay.
So we're talking 22.5% and 26.4% respectively. So that's a growing community of people with ties back to Central America.
Yeah.
Now, if you connect that to what's happening in the U.S. job market, the report shows that employment rates for immigrants from the region are up and their average weekly wages are also rising.
Okay. So more people working, more money coming in.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a pretty clear picture of why remittances back to the region are doing so well.
Right.
But it's not just the U.S. We also have to look at Spain.
Okay. What's going on over there?
Well, the report shows a 9.7% increase in migrants from Latin America and the Caribbean living in Spain.
Okay. So similar trend to the U.S.
Yeah, very similar. And just like in the U.S., the job market in Spain is also recovering for these migrants. So we're seeing higher employment rates there as well.
Okay. More jobs, more money coming back home.
Oof.
Sounds good so far.
Yeah, it sounds good, but there's a catch.
I knew there was a bed coming.
Yeah, you're right to be cautious. So while employment is up, wages are actually declining in sectors like construction and services where many migrants from the region are employed. So in construction, we're seeing a 9.6% drop in wages, and in services, a 3.6% decline.
So even though more people working, they might actually be taking home less money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that really starts to make you think about the purchasing power of those remittances.
Right.
Especially with inflation rising globally.
That's a great point. And I think that's what we should talk about next.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's not just how much money is being sent, but what those receiving it can actually buy with it.
Absolutely. It's the other side of the coin. It's kind of a hidden challenge, right? You see these impressive figures for remittances, but what can they really buy?
Right. Yeah, a dollar just doesn't go as far anymore.
Exactly.
So let's look at those regional differences in purchasing power.
Yeah.
The report highlights Mexico as a place where this is a real issue.
Yeah, Mexico has seen a pretty big decrease, 18.9%.
Wow.
In the purchasing power of remittances. And that's really due to both currency depreciation and inflation.
Also a double whammy.
Yeah, it's hitting them from both sides.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for families that depend on that income.
Yeah, it really shows how these external factors, beyond just how much money is sent, can have a huge impact.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the global economy is interconnected and complex. It's not happening in a vacuum. And that's why a tool like Portal Mi Empresa is so valuable.
Right.
Because it provides that granular data to help investors really understand those nuances.
Okay, so let's bring it back to Central America.
Okay.
Especially since you're interested in Honduras.
Right. What's
the situation there with purchasing power?
So the region as a whole saw a 5.1% decrease.
Okay.
Driven mostly by an 8.2% inflation rate.
So inflation is really eating away at those gains.
Yeah, it's a real concern for families who rely on this money.
For sure.
But it's not all bad news.
Right.
So you have to remember that Central America's remittance growth rate has significantly outpaced the estimated GDP per capita growth for the region.
Oh, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
What does that tell us?
Well, even with inflation, remittances are still providing a buffer. They're helping families to kind of weather the economic storms and preventing them from falling deeper into poverty.
So it's making a real difference.
Yeah, it's crucial in a region where so many rely on this income.
Right. And since Honduras is part of Central America, it's safe to assume that they're also feeling that decrease in purchasing power.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're experiencing those same regional trends. But it still doesn't really answer our earlier question.
Right.
About why Honduras is seeing slower remittance growth compared to some of its neighbors, like Nicaragua.
Right. Can't all be down to inflation.
Exactly. So we have to remember that each country has its own unique story.
Right.
And those individual circumstances really matter.
Okay.
So Honduras's remittance landscape is shaped by a bunch of different factors, including the size and characteristics of its diaspora.
So who is sending the money and where they're sending it from plays a big role.
Exactly. Think about the number of Honduran migrants abroad, their primary destinations, and even what kind of jobs they have. All of that contributes to the overall flow.
So maybe the Honduran diaspora isn't growing as quickly as, say, the Nicaraguan diaspora.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Especially since we saw that massive surge in immigration from Nicaragua.
Right. Or it could be that Honduran migrants are facing different economic realities in those destination countries.
Right.
Like we talked about wage stagnation in certain sectors in Spain. What if Honduran workers are concentrated in those sectors.
Right. That would really impact their ability to send money back.
Exactly. It's a ripple effect.
Right.
Economic conditions in one country can have these far-reaching consequences.
Totally. What about government policies?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Do those have any influence?
Absolutely. Policies in both Honduras and those sending countries can influence how easy it is and how costly it is for migrants to send money back home.
Oh, okay.
So think about regulations on money transfers,
Right.
fees charged by financial institutions, even broader immigration policies.
All of that can impact remittance flows.
It sounds like anyone considering investing in a country like Honduras would really need to understand those policy nuances.
Absolutely. It's crucial. That's where a tool like Portal Mi Empresa can really be a game changer. Because it gives investors that deep dive into the country-specific data, helping them to navigate all of those complexities.
We've been talking about the economic side of remittances.
Right, the dollars and cents.
Yeah.
The impact on GDP.
But what about the human side of it?
Oh, that's a really important question. And one that probably deserves its own deep dive.
Right.
It goes beyond just economics. Remittances can actually shape the fabric of societies.
Wow.
They can influence everything from family dynamics to cultural practices.
So it's more than just money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's opportunity, it's responsibility, it's keeping those family ties strong.
Right. Think about a family receiving remittances in Honduras. How does it change their daily life?
Does it provide a sense of security or create a feeling of dependency?
That's a good question.
And what about the impact on the community as a whole?
Yeah.
If a big chunk of a town's income is coming from remittances, does that lead to more investment in local businesses?
That's interesting.
Does it change how people think about the future?
So remittances can really be a catalyst for change.
Absolutely. Both positive and negative.
At every level.
At the individual level, the family level, the community level.
It's a good reminder that economics isn't just about numbers.
Right.
It's about people's choices, the relationships they build, the dreams they have for themselves and their families.
Absolutely. And those human stories are often the key to understanding the real impact of remittances.
Right. Beyond just the data.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's easy to focus on the big picture stuff, but ultimately these are individual stories.
Yeah. Those stories are often the most powerful.
Right. So imagine a young Honduran who leaves their family to go find work in the U.S.
Right.
Sending, part of their earnings back every month. Maybe that money's paying for their little sister's school fees or helping their grandparents afford medicine.
Exactly.
It's more than just money.
Yeah. It's about opportunity.
Right.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Maintaining those connections across borders.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you have the family receiving those remittances back in Honduras. How does that impact their daily life?
Yeah.
Does it provide security or maybe create a sense of dependency?
Right. It's a good question.
And what about the impact on the community as a whole?
Yeah.
If a large part of a town's income comes from these remittances, does that encourage investment in local businesses?
Yeah.
Does it change people's outlook on the future?
It's fascinating to think about.
So remittances could be a force for change.
Definitely.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
At so many different levels.
It's true. It affects individuals, families, entire communities.
It's a reminder that economics is about more than just numbers.
Absolutely.
It's about people, their hopes, their dreams, the connections they make.
And the sacrifices they make.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've gone from that big picture overview, looking at the overall growth in remittances, zooming in on Central America, Honduras.
Yeah.
We've even touched on those human stories.
Absolutely.
We've seen how important remittances are for millions of people.
Yeah, a real lifeline.
But also how things like inflation can diminish that purchasing power.
Yeah.
And tools like Portal Mi Empresa can really help investors understand these trends.
Yeah.
So they can make informed decisions.
It's a complex landscape.
It is.
And they can help make sense of it.
So hopefully this deep dive has given you a better understanding of the power of remittances.
Yeah.
Both as an economic force and a social one.
Absolutely.
So if you want to learn more about the impact of remittances on Honduras or any other country, definitely check out the full report.
Yeah, it's packed with information.
Tons of great data insights to help you understand all of this.
And remember, every data point represents a human story.
That's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And a big thanks to Portal Mi Empresa for partnering with us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
We'll be back soon.
Looking forward to it.
With another look A fascinating topic.
Sounds good.
Shaping our world.